Hello, I'm Jeff Cavins, and today we're looking at the readings for the fourth Sunday in Ordinary Time. You know, one of the keys to becoming really a powerful follower of Christ, or put another way, a holy follower of Christ, is to find your life hidden in Jesus. The more you hide your life in Jesus, or to walk in Christ, the more that you will become like Him. In today's readings, we really see the key to becoming more like Christ, and it's not really the big popular way, but it seems like more of a difficult way to become like Him. Oftentimes we rejoice at the fact that we are New Testament Christians and we're not doing what they did in the Old Testament, but when we get to the New Testament, as we are going to find out in weeks ahead, the bar has been raised. It's actually more difficult. In the first reading this week in Zephaniah chapter 2 and chapter 3, we find that it's the humble who take refuge in the Lord. Whatever you're going through in your life today, I want to encourage you to begin to focus on taking refuge in the Lord. That means that throughout the battles of your life and all the pressure that's going on at work or at home, you need some refuge, and that refuge is in Christ. We see that in the second reading in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 26 through 31, Paul says, "For consider your call, brethren, not many of you were wise according to the flesh, not many were powerful, not many were of noble birth, but God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no flesh might boast in the presence of God. He is the source of your life in Christ Jesus, whom God made our wisdom, our righteousness, and sanctification and redemption. Therefore, as it is written, let him who boasts, boast in the Lord." One of the things that always strikes me about the gospel of Jesus Christ is that it seems to be backward according to the way we do things in the modern world. We think to ourselves, well, if Jesus really wants to grow His kingdom, then He simply needs to touch and save and bring really popular people or people of influence into the church, and that's going to propel the gospel forward. But we see that in the reading today, particularly in the gospel reading in chapter 5 in the Beatitudes, that it isn't the wise, it's not those who are particularly talented that God uses, but it's those who humble themselves before the Lord and they begin to live in Christ. And when you live in Christ, your life takes on a whole new texture, a whole new aroma, a new flavor. The Beatitudes tell us all about it, and that's what we're focusing on this week in Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7 are kind of interesting because they represent the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is very similar to Moses going up on Mount Sinai and giving the law. This is the new law. And so we see in chapter 5 that the crowds were there and He went up on the mountain, and when He sat down, His disciples came to Him, and He opened His mouth and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And then He goes on and He talks about blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted, and blessed are those who are meek, for they will inherit the earth, and those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, and they'll be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy, and blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, and blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God, and blessed are those who are persecuted. And he goes on again and says, blessed are those who are reviled, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and they are going to have a great, great reward. When we look at the Beatitudes, it's often been said that these are the attitudes that we should adopt in our own life, but they go beyond a simple attitude and they go deep into action. They go into the way we live our life. If you want to know what this is really talking about, it's really a description of Jesus. The Beatitudes are a description of Jesus, and by walking this way, it gives us a gauge to see, are we truly in Christ? And if we are in Christ, we will reap the rewards that are mentioned here. Generally speaking, in the Old Testament, the rewards were kind of on the outside. You know, there was gold and there was silver and there was land, and I'm the head and not the tail, and all those things are great. But what we see in the New Testament now is that the reward is even greater. It's greater than land and greater than gold. It is Jesus Christ Himself. So I want to encourage you to take refuge in the Lord and begin to walk this way, for this is the way of success. This is the reward that is awaiting us. It is Jesus Christ.